Hello, Mary and Alfredo. Alfredo
Hi,
from Chile.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I see Cristobal has joined us. Big plant forum thing tonight. Anyway, welcome everybody. So where do you go garden, Alfredo? Garden. I know you're in Chile, but what part of Chile?
We are in the Curacaví Valley, near to Santiago. I belong to the Mediterranean Garden. We have a webpage you may have seen before.
Do you know about fuchsia lysioides?
I'm not sure.
Fuchsia, Alfredo, Fuchsia lysioide. This is a Chilean plant, a coast Chilean plant. But
yeah, I know, but I don't know that one.
So Cristobal, you know about it?
Yes, I use it a lot in my gardens because it's one of the most important food for the giant hummingbird. So if you want to attract the giant hummingbird to your garden, you need to use Fuchsia lysioide. When they're nesting is absolutely essential for hummingbirds.
See the hummingbird with my fuchsia? But it's not lysioid.
Yes. This is
here, I'll do this. Then you can see the picture.
Yeah, I can see the picture, yes.
Yeah.
You have to attract that giant hummingbird from a long ways away.
Yeah, I'm trying to grow lysioides. It's got about 4 leaves on it, and the stem's about 2 inches. I'm not getting much growth on it.
The most important thing about Fuchsia lysioide is that you don't have to water at all in the summer because it goes completely summer dormant. So free drainage, you need, free draining soil, a lot of stone, and not a drop of water in the summer. You can start watering by the end of the summer, beginning of fall, but stop watering the Fuchsia lysioide by the end of winter, probably first month maybe of spring, but then no more water. It rots very easily.
It's got a big tuber in it.
And doesn't like cold weather. You live near the coast.
Yeah.
So perfect weather for Fuchsia lysioide. Easy to grow, but no water.
Yeah.
You do water it, don't you?
It's in a pot, and I try to be very, very judicious about it. But we had like a super long, foggy summer, extremely foggy.
Yeah. Well, it is 6:30, and we have a full program tonight. So I want to welcome everybody to the California Horticultural Society. I'm Ellen Frank, and I'm one of the board members. Right now, we'll do our plant forum, and at 7 o'clock, but we'll have a little couple of announcements, and then at 7 o'clock, we'll have Cristobal, and Cristobal will be speaking. And then afterwards, if we have not gone through the whole forum, we'll do complete that at the end of the, after Cristobal's talk, and if questions and answers, and if push comes to shove, we'll put the last half in October. So I want to welcome everybody again for the Horticultural Society Plant Forum. And I want to thank Judy, Richard, Daisy, Sean, Connie, and myself, and Bart for sharing and contributing to this month's meeting. And we'll get started right away. If you guys want to start contribute next month, send to me by Sunday at 5 before the following meeting. Okay, and at 7, as I mentioned, Cristobal Elgueta Marinovic will be speaking, and I'm all looking forward to that. Okay, Judy, I think you're on first.
Oh, wow. It's bulb season, and so I'm busily dividing, potting, fertilizing my bulbs, but this is one of the early bulbs. And this is Albuca Setosa. And let's see what I have about it. It's a South African bulb. Generally, it's a winter bloomer, and I can't tell you why it's blooming now, but it is. It is deciduous, and it has either white or yellow flowers with a broad greenish kind of central strip in the middle of the petal. The leaves sometimes dry up in dry weather, and I'm finding that that's what's happening to mine. The leaves are starting to dry up, and that happens even while the bulb is in bloom. So it does need sun, well-drained soil, and it is forgiving, and it is tough because this is the first time it's bloomed, and I've had it for a while, but I will admit I have been neglectful of it. So I was pleased to see it. I was looking forward to maybe a fragrance, which Albucas often have, but this one doesn't seem to have any. So it is propagated by rare offsets, and it does, you usually propagate it by seed. So I haven't had any, like I said, it hasn't bloomed that much, but I have neglected it greatly. Okay, next. Oh, the Tekomaria Capensis. This is one that I got from Annie's Annuals, and it was introduced by Gary Hammer, who's a plantsman down, I think, in Southern California. And it can be either a perennial vine or a bush. And it's easily pruned, she said, to 4 to 6 feet, or it can get to be a rambling vine to 16 feet tall and 6 feet wide. And I think I'm going to have some hard work keeping it down. I really don't want it that big, so I think I'm going to have to be really whacking on it regularly. It does bloom in the late summer to winter, which is nice. And it's kind of semi-deciduous, but it's more evergreen, I guess. So I'll have the evergreen foliage all through the winter, which is nice. It is tolerant, she's right on her website, of blistering heat and of drought, because it is in south facing. It gets very little water, it gets full sun, and it's frost tolerant. The soil is fair where it's growing. And I got it 3 years ago. It does grow pretty fast. So it is very tolerant of neglect, because I have a couple of them in 1 gallon cans that somebody gave to me. And they've been in those 1 gallons for 2 or 3 years. So I do have to find a spot for them, but they're a little more rampant than what I thought.
It's getting big there.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Judy. Are you on right now? Oh, yes, I see you are.
I don't know, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a shrub which I didn't know what it was until quite recently. It's just curious to me that it's blooming right now in this 95-degree heat, and it has fuchsia-like berries on it, and it gets very little irrigation. It does get some. It's about 3 feet tall.
I had never seen it in fruit. I thought that was curious. Evidently, that's fairly common after my reading.
Yeah, well, as I said, I had no idea what it was until a week ago. And it has these tiny blue flowers, which are almost so totally inconspicuous. And then these long berries that look like fuchsia berries.
Well, commonly inland, it's grown in partial shade, and it tends to kind of be a sprawling little shrub and nice filler inner. And evidently you can train it to grow up on a fence or some sort of support, and it'll get pretty tall, I guess about 6 feet. So kind of a well-behaved.
Well, that's nice. I think because where it is in full sun here, in very hot sun, it's staying very low, because I haven't trimmed it at all.
But you're also in San Francisco, right?
No, I'm in Marin.
Oh.
It is also a great ground cover.
Well, it is typically, this is Bart, it is typically very drought tolerant, and there are a number of name selections of it for larger and bluer flowers and a white flowered form. And they all tend to have those dark stems and very durable plant.
Yes, it does seem to be very, very hardy. It can take a lot of abuse, I guess.
Oh, I agree.
This is Sean. Back in the 90s, when this became a plant that everybody wanted to grow, I used it to as an illustration for the Cal Hort ad in Pacific Horticulture, which ran for several years, the white form. So yeah, I was, back then it was considered very unusual and rare, and now it's become a little bit.
Yeah, I think that it was UC Santa Cruz that brought in the cultivars of it. It had been around in California for a time before that, though. but the white one, and I think the blue one that is more clumpy, bushy is called Body's Choice, Boddys, and or apostrophe S, and that's another one that I believe UC Santa Cruz brought in. Again, they're all really nice plants, and if you do want a smaller vine, it is smaller and won't ever get rampant and out of control. Okay. And as was mentioned in the chat, it is also a good ground cover.
Let's take a look at that, I guess.
Okay. And Richard's got another one here, Plum Crazy.
Yeah, I got this. I think this was in Orissa Gardens, but it's doing fine. Supposedly it's can grow in the sun, but I haven't tried that. It's growing in the shade for me, and I like the fact that there's so many oxalises around, but it's been in flower all summer.
It's really showy.
Yeah.
Nice trails over. Also, if you're on the edge of a pot or something, it's nicely cascading and kind of billows out.
Richard, I have a question. This is Josh. I'm curious. In the center there, it shows some non-variegated leaves. Is it reverting back there, or do you have two cultivars mixed together?
No, that's one plant, and I have no idea. It just looks like some of the leaves are pink and some are green. So
interesting.
Yeah, it should be just variegated, and that there probably are going to be full stems or branches that have lost the variegation mutation. And if you want to maintain the variegation, you should remove the non-variegated, because it will overwhelm the variegated. As you can even see in your photo, the non-variegated leaves are a lot bigger.
Yeah, thank you for that piece of advice. Is that variegation like from a virus or something?
Well, I'm not sure. Variegation can be either a somatic mutation, which is just genetic, or it can be a virus, or the third type, which you don't see very often, is airspace. If you think of milk thistle, the weed that's all over the place in California with the big leaves that have the silver variegation, it's actually not variegation at all. It's airspace. And if you cut a leaf in half, you'll see that it's airspace.
I have that one too, and it does show a lot of green growth on it.
Well, I think I'm going to take...
Bart, isn't this chimeric variegation, where the mutation happens in only certain layers of the plant tissue, and that's why it's so random and tends to revert to green? That's what I've read in a lot of botanical papers.
Yeah, it very likely could be. Chimeric variegation is usually a lot less stable. And you get a lot of different patterns and so forth. I'm not remembering if Plum Crazy is the basic form, or if this is the one that Nguyen, formerly with Cal Hort, had selected. I believe this one might be the one that Ngu selected. I do have that one as well. I just forget the name of it. And mine is in full sun in Point Richmond, where it does get warm, and it is fine. My big question is whether or not this hybridizes with Corniculata, because now that I've had this one for a while, I'm seeing some much bigger Oxalis corniculatas around with green leaves.
That's the weedy one?
Yep, that's the weedy one that's in all the cactus and succulent collections everywhere. And that it's just a general garden weed. And my concern is, am I actually seeing seedlings of this that are coming up green, or am I seeing hybrids between Corniculata and this one, which is Vulcanorum, if I'm not mistaken?
Well, let me just add a tidbit of information here. When I first bought this plant, it didn't have any pink leaves. All the leaves were green.
Oh. Maybe when it's young, it doesn't develop the.
Or you can just have another spontaneous one, mutation, which is certainly possible. So, and again, New Nuyens was more of a selection off of the existing variegated one that was even more variegated, I believe. I know that mine is the New Nuyen one, and I should take some pictures of them and send them in for next month.
The only reason I put this photo in here is because this was a tree that came with the house that bought a year ago, and it's now in fall color, which is kind of early. Nothing else in fall color around here, but I kind of like the fall color that it has on it.
Yeah, Pistachio Chinensis can have spectacular fall color, from oranges, reds, yellows. Looks like yours is more burgundy-ish. And again, it might get better.
Yeah, as you can see, it has a lot of green leaves still, so it's just starting.
Yeah, I find they're very variable in their fall color. And it's probably is genetic, just differences.
Right, yeah.
Someone asked if the male have color up more. Does anybody know?
I don't think that there's wild differences. I mean, there would just be more genetic variation. You probably have spectacular male ones and spectacular female ones, and boring males and boring females.
Just like people, okay.
You said it, I didn't.
Okay, so Daisy.
Oh, okay. All right. I think most people know this plant as Erginia, but it's been changed to Drumia. But I looked it up online and it doesn't recognize Drumia as much as Erginia, the old name or the synonym. This is taken at the WPA Rock Garden in Sacramento at William Lamb Park. And this is a hard time for the garden. It's about an acre in size. And after I retired from this garden 8 years ago, it pretty much got neglected. And even when I was there, most summers at this time of year was, a little bit sad looking, dryish, stress. But this year has been a banner year for these bulbs, and it's just so magical to walk around the garden and see them popping up. It just seems like almost everywhere is a very adaptable bulb, and sometimes it seems like it refuses to bloom, but for some reason this year they all decided to bloom, and the bees are really happy. So I'm pretty sure I'll have a lot of viable seed to share.
Does it seed around and grow up kind of naturally on its own, or
it hasn't planted? It's all, these are all planted bulbs. I haven't noticed reseeding, but I have collected the seed and propagated it, and it doesn't seem that hard. And maybe snails do not eat it, but I've had some, reasonable success with it.
Spectacular little forest there.
Yeah.
And it's in partial shade then in Sacramento?
Pretty much. I have it in different locations. Like the one on the right is quite a bit of sun most of the day, and it seems to be fine. A mature bulb can get 12 inches across and over 2 pounds. And the early Egyptians and Greeks used it as an edema, a laxative, expectorant, and rat poison. So, so it had a lot of uses. And yeah, as you can see, there's no foliage while it's flowering, but when the flowers fade and brown, the foliage is a very beautiful rosette of leaves. So.
Nice.
Yeah, I was going to mention that it is highly poisonous and it is still used as a rat poison. So do be careful in that regard. There are forms that seem to have very green leaves and forms that have very blue-gray leaves. That's really the only difference that I've seen in them. They can be grown in full hot sun. I know of a garden in the valley in LA where there are lots of them, again, in full hot sun. I grow mine in large pots because they do get quite large, and mine are in full hot sun. You don't need to water them hardly at all.
Yeah, the foliage is only out when it's cool months though, really.
Yeah, it has the same leaf pattern as Amaryllis belladonna.
Yeah.
The naked ladies.
Yeah, this is in the asparagus family. You would think it'd be edible or not so toxic.
Bart, you said it was poisonous. Does that mean deer won't eat it?
Yeah, I don't believe anything bothers this plant, just like Amaryllis. Almost nothing bothers that either. But this I know is highly toxic to everything.
Daisy, how long have these been in the garden?
Well, I remember getting these bulbs from a man named Tom MacGyver and in San Jose. And after I was leaving San Jose, I went to Wayne Roderick's memorial in Berkeley. So I looked it up and it was 2003 when he died. And so,
thank you.
Yeah.
Daisy, so, I think the bulbs that I have also came from the same fellow in San Jose.
Oh, okay.
And they all seem to be clones of each other, so I don't really get seed set, which is unfortunate. The interesting thing about this plant is it does multiply the bulbs, but instead of creating little bulblets around the base that are tiny and grow up to adults, it actually, each bulb, when it reaches a huge size, suddenly bifurcates and becomes 2 bulbs. And that's why when you see plantings, you generally see lots of clumps of leaves, lots of spikes of flowers that are the same size. Even when we were in the Mediterranean, we saw this in the native populations. They tend to get kind of build up and pop out of the ground and everything. It's a really unusual habit. I know that some people propagating them have sliced the bottoms of the bulbs a bit to cause it to produce little bulbils and stuff, but that's not its normal thing. This plant is distributed for all along the Mediterranean Sea, the northern Mediterranean Sea, and some parts of the south. And there are botanists are starting to think that they call them 2 different species. The eastern group is one species and the western group is another. And I forget, one of them has the bluer leaves that Bart was talking about, and also one of them has a slightly redder tint to the flowers. But I haven't seen a lot of consistent information on that. But when I talked to botanists in the Mediterranean, when I've traveled there, this seems to be what they're doing. It's a wonderful plant. I have a pot of them too, and mine aren't blooming this year, unfortunately. I'm rather sad that I think they're going to skip this year, but then maybe that'll mean they'll be great next year. So.
Yeah. David Sarasua bought a whole truckload of those when a florist, they were growing them for floral cut flowers, and they were digging up the field, and he bought a whole truckload for full. That's why a lot of ours are from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, someone stole half of what I had first planted, and David donated some to the garden. So now I don't worry about it. And here is a little bit of a repeat. This is the Lotus that I planted in about, I don't know, 2010 maybe. Maybe earlier, but anyway, I struggled with it because all parts of the lotus is edible, and the ducks and the geese, you know, kept eating the young plants, and you know, they're about $40 a pop at the nursery, so you don't want to do that too many times. But fortunately, one of my friends built cages for me, and then I had no problems getting them established. But after I retired 8 years ago, I had warned the staff that one particular lotus, this one is called the President, is an escapee, and if you're not careful, it's gonna take over the pond, and it has. So I don't know how big this pond is, but it's a few acres large. And in a way, it's been a great thing because it attracts a lot of attention. People come from all over the country, really. Well, not all over the country, but people come from afar. You know, I've met people from LA, Bay Area, who come, you know, as a, it's just like they have to come see the lotus because it's such an important plant in Asian culture. And so I'm very happy it went out of control. But if you are interested in seed, unfortunately, this variety, which is an ornamental, does not produce viable seed, in my opinion. I tried, but the seeds are sort of empty and kind of hollow. And I have learned since that there are 3 types of lotus that are grown. There's one that's grown for the rhizome, which many of us have eaten in Chinese restaurants. And then there's, and they don't produce many flowers. And then the second type is grown for seed production. And the seed is candied and snacked on. And they don't have good root system. So they don't make good rhizomes. And then here we have the ornamental. So all it is a beautiful flower that I'm glad, you know, people are enjoying. And I just gone to a art studio tour in Sacramento a couple weekends, and I can see there's lotus inspiring artists these days, and I think it's due to this plant. So a photographer did a fabulous image of it, and it was very dramatic, dark lighting, and she said it was pretty dark, and she put her tripod in the water. She had to get that shot, and it was a magnificent picture. So it was good to hear that, you know, she felt it was important to capture you know, a beautiful picture of a lotus.
That's neat that you've made such an impact on all these artists and stuff. That's kind of fun to go around and say,
yeah.
Daisy, this is Josh. I'm curious, do the lotuses in Sacramento, do they die down to the roots in the winter, or do they maintain their foliage at all?
Oh no, they look dead. They dry up, turn brown, dry up, and we don't have. Well, I'm retired, but there's no staffing to clean it up, so the leaves just rot, in the water. And then this year, I was expecting, like most years, for it to bloom in or start doing something in May, but we had our cool spring in April, March and April, and it didn't start blooming till June instead of May. And I wasn't expecting it to continue blooming through September, but it is still continuing to bloom a bit.
Oh, so good excuse to go up to Sacramento and see the lotus seed swell then.
Yeah, it's mostly pods right now. So thank you.
Awesome. Okay,
Yep.
Sean is on there. And by the way, Sean, thank you so much for suggesting Cristobal as a speaker. That was a great presentation.
Well,
and then if anybody else has any suggestions for speakers, let one of us know.
Well, thank you, Cristobal. We all really enjoyed the talk. I'm sure I speak for quite a number of people here. It was, I can't wait to see the recording, to watch it all over again. I have a lot of things that I'm thinking about. So this is a plant that appeared at the one of our in-person Cal Hort meetings. We walked into the auditorium and there were these two little plants sitting on the stage, no identity, nothing. And everybody said, well, what are these, And so we just put them in the raffle and I ended up winning this one. And yeah, a lot of people were offering all kinds of ideas about what it was. It was just a teeny little cutting, none of which turned out to be true. And I found out eventually that this was the coast woolly bush. And my daughter was in the midst of planting her garden and she was looking for a spot of orange in a particular area of her garden. And I got all excited when I read that the flowers on this plant were orange. But as you can see from the flower shot, they're not very showy. And I think it probably was a few seasons before I even noticed that there were flowers on it. But it has such a nice texture. This genus, they have these really minute hairs on their leaves that catch the light in this interesting way. So that has this silvery sort of glint to it if the light is, shining on it just right. So people always ask about it. This is right at the entrance to our garden. So people always wonder what it is. It's been pretty easy to grow. And I have some cuttings that were in a bouquet that was given to my wife. Apparently our friend has it in her garden. And I put them in, I kept them. I threw all the flowers out after they died, but I've kept the cuttings, the sprigs, and they're doing great. And they haven't put on any roots, but I think I'll probably try to root them to get some more plants. It seems, and it's growing in total crap soil in a hole in concrete paving in our backyard. So it seems pretty tough.
I have this plant, told me it does okay in dry shade. It's alive.
I think it probably would. This gets sun in the afternoon, but not until midday. And then the house shades it again later on. So it probably would take some shade, but I think you probably get the effect of the foliage better in strong light. So
yeah, it usually is grown in full sun and usually with excellent drainage. And that one thing Sean didn't mention, it's in the Protea family. So you don't want to give it much fertilizer at all. And particularly no, phosphorus.
Well, it seems to be doing quite well on our Berkeley clay. I haven't fertilized it or anything. So
does look happy.
But yeah, I think that the individual flowers do look kind of like protea type flowers.
Yep, they definitely are.
Individual grevillea flowers.
Yeah. So I grow a number of epidendron orchids that, you know, were given to me by friends, etc. And as you can see in this shot, this is a very impatient kiki, as they're called, plantlet on the flower stem. That, in fact, the larger of these two that rushed into bloom before they even rooted on their own, has now fallen off. So I'll have to pot it up. But they're really easy to grow. I can't believe how they grow. I planted them in a strawberry pot many years ago, under a vine that has tendrils going up, and they kind of grow through it and reach for the sun. And by now you can't even see the pot. It's just a mass of roots. I never fertilize them. I just spray them, you know, periodically, and they just love it. So very easy to grow. I don't see it very often around the area. I see maybe a little bit more in Berkeley, but very easy plant, and there are a lot of color forms, a lot of different hybrids. They will take a lot of sun too. I've seen friends grow them in really, really bright sun. They like hot, humid areas, but they do just fine in our cool Berkeley garden.
Yeah, what they don't like are freezes, and that's what limits their use beyond kind of immediate bay. I have a whole bunch of different ones. I got a bunch from Ted Kipping, including that huge orange one that gets to be like 5 feet, 6 feet tall. Super vigorous.
Yeah, I have some of that one. It's really impressive. It grows quite large. Yeah, I shared some of mine with him as well over the years. The Crassula Falcata that we've grown for many years, it sulked under my care for a long time, and my wife sort of felt sorry for it, and she developed a special interest in it. And she suggested planting it in this, you know, it's basically this weird little brick wall pocket that somebody thought was a good idea against the building. It's a back of a building adjacent to us, and it gets blasted with afternoon sun, and it just has thrived ever since. And it's been blooming quite heavily each year at different times. Never quite the same month. Kind of is curious, but you know, kind of around this time, but also a little later in fall and stuff like that. So
it's fragrant, which I like.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. And this Echeveria, we've grown for a long time. I got it for just one little 4-inch pot from a florist many years ago, and it stood out because it had no tinge to the leaves, which most of the pulvinata forms have some sort of red tinging. This one was pure white, and it has this nice clear orange. And again, my daughter is just recently planted a garden slope, and they put I had given her cuttings of this years ago, and she had a number of them. I gave her some more because it multiplies quite well. And it's really striking to add that touch of orange. Also, the deer seem to be leaving it alone. She lives on Spruce Street in Berkeley, and the deer used to camp out under her deck and things like that. And the deer don't seem to bother it. They've eaten all the sedums and other succulents, but not this one. So she's requested more from us.
Is that Oclivia blooming in the background this time of year?
That is Oclivia. It's a hybrid between a couple of species, and yeah, a friend of mine gave that to me many years ago. And it's about to burst out of its pot, and it won't stop blooming. So I don't dare repot it because it just keeps blooming and blooming and blooming all year long.
Wow.
It's crazy. So I guess I'll just wait until it pops the terracotta pot up into pieces and maybe plant it in a new pot then.
It looks like it might be a Nobilis crossed with Miniata. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and this I got, Andy Stone brought a cutting in and told a cute story about it. He's always so good with his stories. And I thought the foliage was quite interesting. He didn't have any flowers on it when he brought it in. I like it too because the underside of the leaves and the stems are kind of rusty and colored, and you might have noticed already that we like rusty stuff in the garden, so it combines well with what we do. And the flowers are such a brilliant true blue. It really stands out. It's a very nice plant.
How tall does it get?
Pardon me?
How tall does it get?
Well, I understand it can get 4 to 6 feet tall even. I haven't had that happen yet. This one is planted in a concrete tube and in a very hot, dry spot. So that may be why it hasn't quite reached that yet. So. And I think it looks like it wants to get a lot bigger than it is now. So.
How long have you had it then?
Probably about 3 years in the ground. I had it in a pot for a long time. It's pretty tough. It put up with pot culture for quite some time. It didn't bloom very much, but now it's really showing its stuff.
Yeah, plants really want to be in the ground, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, it's a real durable one. There's a lot of good things about it. I've never seen one get that big. I mean, even ones that have been in the ground for years that I know of are only around 3 feet-ish, which is a good size. I mean, I think that it does benefit from being pinched back or cut back a little bit, because I have seen some that are kind of gangly.
Yeah, I have pinched this quite a bit. It was producing stems that when they start to flower, they just flop over. So I started, a rigorous pinching program, and it does stay a little bit more upright, but yeah, it looks like it would be just as happy to sprawl as it is to be upright.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Yeah, pretty color.
It's a good plant. We like it.
Okay, Connie, you are on. Are you still on with us? Oh, yep, I see.
Okay, yeah, I'm here. Okay. This one I think came from Cal Hort. And what happened was I had photographed this one to send in, and then at the last minute I found something that had sprung up in a pot that I didn't recognize and sent it on to Ellen. And she said it was probably related to this. So Ellen, if you can show the other one.
Here's the other
that
one.
you connected to this. And they're very similar. It's the one on the right with a little yellow flower. The leaves are slightly different. The flower is a different shade of yellow, and it hasn't made the little lanterns yet. But apparently they're related. And I don't know if the second one grew out of a ground cherry that got buried and germinated, or if it's something else. So I'm going to wait and see if it does produce the lanterns. and then I'll probably know. But they, it's kind of strange that they're like almost like twins, but not identical.
Little different leaf. It reminds me of a tomatia, the second one. I don't know. Does anybody else have any ideas on what the one on the right here might be?
Tomatillo would be a good guess.
Yeah, and all tomatillos are physalis, which is what the other one is. There just are multiple taxa.
It's Chrysostomos.
What?
Chrysostomos.
Physalis.
I can't spell it. Chrysostomos. If I could spell it, I would write it in the chat.
About the bulb
it's right there. It's right at the top of the screen right now. Physalis, Physalis.
I'm talking about the red flower. Is that what you're talking about?
The red flower is Schizostylus.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to.
Here, I'll type it in. Schizostylus coccineus.
That's the little red bulb.
Yes.
Okay. Because I don't think I planted it. It's just been popping up from time to time.
Did you put it in, Bart?
Yeah. This spelling might not be perfect, but it should be close enough to get you there.
Okay. I'll check that and put that in there before I send this to Anne for looking at. Okay. So do you have any other comments on your plants there, Connie?
Only if you want to bring up the mystery plant from
yes.
before, if anybody has figured out what it is. I sawed it off as low as I could, to try to get rid of it. This is the original pictures. And then the ones I just sent is all of this sawed off so you can see how big the trunk is, or the multiple trunks.
Yeah, I didn't bring those in.
And then a close-up of the new growth.
So I figure we have maybe some new people that might have an idea on what this vigorous vine is. But it's got a lot of roots to push out growth too.
Yeah, but it's really not very attractive, and I'm hoping that I can figure out a way to kill it, or at least keep it under control.
They do have those stump kind of remover things. You drill a hole in the stump and you put something down there that starts to decompose or whatever. So you could do something like that.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing you could definitely kill it with is just cut the surface and paint it with Roundup, and I'm sure that would do it.
There you go.
I really don't want to deal with Roundup at all. I don't want to have to buy it and then use a tiny amount. So, it's probably beyond vinegar or boiling water.
Yeah, you're probably gonna have to be pretty kind of tenacious about it, because it's probably going to take a while to slow it down with all that roots it has going for it.
But nobody seems to have any kind of an ID for it.
Yeah, that's odd. I don't know.
I'm just really curious what it is.
You kind of have to wait for it to bloom, but then you have to leave part of it out.
But then I have to let it grow if I want to let it bloom.
Very true, but you'd at least get an ID on it. Okay, didn't sound like anybody has any thoughts on that. Okay, so this is mine. This is Oxalis Triangularis. You can see why it's called Triangularis on the left with those three triangles coming in together. And it just forget about it, and then all of a sudden it's looking great and it's blooming, and so then I enjoy it, and then I guess it goes kind of dormant in the wintertime. The Oxalis come up, they have evidently a rhizomaceous, well, they have a little bulb, but then the stem is below ground. And then those are just the petioles of the leaves that are coming up, each individual leaf that comes up. And they close up at night or in low light, as well as the flowers. And that's done by pressure in the cells that cause it to do that. And it's from Brazil, Argentina, Bolivia, and Paraguay. And I think it's really pretty. I put it, it's in partial shade at my house in the pot with the bromeliad there. And it's one of my favorite little begonias. I saw this one, I forgot the guy's name. He used to be up in Glen Ellen. Anyway, so he had this in his garden as a little ground cover, the begonia, and I admired it so much. And then finally I got one, and it's evidently like a tuberous, it's a tuberous type begonia. So I have mine in my pot, in a pot, and I let it dry out in the wintertime when it goes dormant. But I like the orange color, and it kind of has a tendency to cascade or trail, and it'd make a good small ground cover. And the other one in the pot is the Acamenes. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And that, again, kind of just comes up and goes completely dormant. So I don't even think about it until it comes up, and once it starts blooming, I go, oh yeah, there it is. And I actually gave it some, both of these guys a little fertilizer, which the begonia was quite yellow before. So that really responded well to that. So again, both kind of partial shade near the Oxalis.
Yeah, that begonia can seed around in a water situation. And I have it, or I started with it in a pot, clay pot, small clay pot that I kept in a dish of water that always had water. It loves that kind of environment and just goes crazy.
Interesting. Okay. I always thought begonias you had to let them dry between waters.
Not that one. That one can grow in water at all times.
Oh, interesting.
Even when it's dormant, it stays in this thing of water. Wow.
Yeah, I let mine go pretty much dry.
Yeah, it goes completely dormant even at my house in the winter. It's still flowering right now, as yours is. But pretty soon it'll stop flowering, and then it'll just get yellow and sort of fall apart. And I'll think maybe I rotted it out, but no, it always comes back.
Yeah, do you leave it out? Do you leave it outside in the rain, Bart?
Yeah.
If there is any rain.
Yeah. I've had it for a number of years, and it's I don't do anything special with it other than make sure that it always has water.
Yeah, I've had mine quite a number of years as well.
I got mine from Phil and Sherry up at California Flora Nursery, which, yeah, they've always, that nursery's always had it.
Cool. Okay, so this tree, I bought it as Eucalyptus forestiana or forestry, I don't know, the fuchsia flowering eucalyptus. And it grew into this, which I saw at Troy McGregor's house, which I absolutely loved. And it is just bee heaven, I tell you. So it has these big capsules, and they open up, and this is one flower, and there's a little stamen there, or not stamen, the
stigma.
Stigma, thank you. And each of these little pom-poms of stamens comes into each one of these little, here's the capsules. And so these are like hollowed out on the bottom in order to accommodate these pom-poms. And then of course the bottom part also has these. So I think that's so cool. And then they just whoosh, explode, and the bees just love it. They go into between the flowers and just roll around in the pollen, and oh, it's a lot of fun. And evidently it grows in Western Australia. It has kind of a white bark, so it's really pretty. And then you can keep it down by cutting it down to the ground. It's a stump sprouter, burl sprouter. And it evidently can get up to maybe 20 feet tall if you let it. But again, you can cut it back to nothing and use it as a large shrub. It'd be pretty looking down on it from above or something, so you can see these bright red capsules, and then the capsule comes off and nice burst of yellow comes out. It's fun.
I just sent five gallons of those to the sloat at the zoo if anybody wants one.
Huh. Actually, do you cut yours back, Ellen? You mentioned you can, but
you can. I have not.
Ah, okay.
Pot, if you noticed.
Yeah.
Little. It's in that little pot there.
Yeah, well, it's impressive.
I'm sure it's gone through and rooted, but who knows? Okay, Bart, you're on.
Okay, well, I believe everything that I'm showing this time is here at the Botanic Garden and is currently doing what it's doing in the photos. This is one of my favorite buckwheats. It's Eriogonum cinereum, or the ashy leaf buckwheat. It actually inhabits coastal bluffs of Southern California. It does this big billowy form. It cascades well on a slope. Ours is just in one gigantic mass, and we're not even sure how many plants it might be. It's probably more than one, but I have seen them cascade just vertically down a cliff of about 8 feet or so. So that's a possibility as well. This one, this is it in full bloom. It's sort of a pale pink in color. And you can see the foliage there too. It is gray and somewhat ashy. The more sun and more stress it's under, the whiter the foliage is. The flowers, once they're done, fall apart relatively quickly. It's not one that you enjoy the dried inflorescences for months. It has sort of those almost Eriogonum nudum-like stems where there's lots of branches and lots of little pompons. But it's a favorite with insects of all kinds. I took this very late in the day so that you'd see more depth to it. And even then, there were still some bees working it. But it's just a wonderful late summer and fall blooming plant. Gets to be only in height, only about maybe 2 feet in height, not much more than that. Verbicina dissida. This is actually a state-listed plant. In California, it's only known from very, very pricey property in Laguna Beach. In Baja California, in the California Floristic Province portion of Baja, it's much more common. And that's where this individual clone came from, something collected many years ago when I was at Rancho Santa Ana. The plants do make colonies over time. And you can see ours here in our small Baja area has actually spread at least 6 feet or so. The inflorescences come up to about 4 feet or sometimes even more. They're branched. They flower for a long period of time in late summer and fall. They'll probably be going for at least another month. And you can cut them back hard in the winter or not. We generally don't do that much with them, although this one, the colony is getting kind of large. Maybe we will cut it back this winter. That's all on that one, yeah. Cornocessalis, the black-fruited dogwood. This is a shrub. It's mostly seen in, or I think of it as mostly in the Sierra, but it does occur in Northern California and throughout the redwood forest plant communities. It can be a small tree. We have a number of them here at the Botanic Garden that are up to about, I'd say, close to 15 feet. And some of them right now are turning these nice, rich reds and maroons. It seems to be a little bit early to me for this, but this is one fairly near the visitor center at the garden. The ones in the Sierra section are still mostly bright green. It does want some water. It's not drought tolerant. The fruits are black. Does the small cluster of white flowers, no showy white bracts on this one. But I've always liked it for the deep veins that you see in the leaf, and just the architecture of the plant is attractive. It isn't easy to grow from cuttings like most other dogwoods are, but this one not. It can be a little bit slow to get going, but again, you can see some spectacular examples of it here. Similarly with vine maple. Vine maple can be very slow here in the Bay Area. We have very old ones, so we have all different sizes of them. Some of them are already showing fall color. This one in particular, although some of them turn orangey colors, some yellowish. And then we have one in the coastal bluff, the edge of the coastal bluff, that usually turns sort of a burgundy color in July. So far, it hasn't turned yet. It's been really late for color this year. Whereas these other ones here in the Klamath Shasta section are already turning some interesting colors. Although you see in the background, much of that shrub is still green. And then a plant that many native plant people don't know. This is Staphylondrive bolandri, the bladder nut. It's from the Sierra foothills, most common in the southern Sierra foothills. It's a small tree, large shrub, and it has these very interesting white fruits that are inflated. There's no flesh in them. Inside those papery structures, there are just a small number of seeds that are about the size of peas. But you can see that those fruits are about 2 inches or so long. They're really attractive. This particular one in the garden turns bright red. And so, I mean, here's actually a fruit, if you can see that I'm holding up to the camera. And again, they always hang down. I like this particular one because it does turn red in the fall regularly. I mean, I've noticed it for a number of years. A bunch of the other ones in the garden really don't turn interesting fall colors, but this one does. So that seed I just showed you, or that fruit, is actually from that one. So we're going to grow a seed crop of them. So we'll have them at our future plant sales. So
do you think that's genetics, or do you think that's where it's growing?
No, because there's another one right next to it to the left that's green and never turns interesting colors. I think it's genetic that this one just has a different set of sugars that it metabolizes differently.
And you can't grow it from cuttings?
Yeah, you actually can. And many of the plants that we've sold in the past have been grown from cuttings. I just find that a lot of the cutting grown ones don't look pretty in containers. They can look just like a stick that's not that attractive. And I'm hoping the seedlings will be more interesting looking for people. The leaves on these are compound. They're 3 leaflets. So it's actually got more interest to it than it seems.
Oh, just like poison oak, huh?
Well, yes, except that this is typically upright and typically a lot taller and simple leaf margins. You can see that on the close-up a bit, whereas poison oak almost always has somewhat undulate or
shiny,
almost ripply leaves. Yes, and typically shiny. This doesn't look like poison oak.
Except for 3s.
Yes. Wonderful plant. And then another plant that many people are familiar with, but oftentimes have not really seen them going off with berries, is Summerholic, Chomarostaphos diversifolia. This is a plant of coastal chaparral in Southern California. It's not super common. I've never seen lots of them in any one place. And usually I've only seen like 1 or 2 wherever I've seen them. And I've never seen many. I think Carol Bornstein has seen more in a couple of locations. However, this plant loves the Bay Area, and it particularly loves our garden. We have a couple of very large ones that are trees. Others are shrubs. Robins love these fruits, and they're just descending upon the garden now to eat them all. And then they'll poop them out all over the canyon section of the garden and where the plants actually are growing in the garden in the Channel Island section. And we get seedlings of them coming up all over the place. You just do not see that in Southern California. I think it's one of the instances of a plant that got, or that would prefer to be in what our current climate in the Bay Area is. And so, yes, it fruits incredibly, it flowers incredibly, it seeds around successfully, where it really doesn't in Southern California anymore. It's too hot and too dry, but much happier here. As you can see, the flowers and fruits are held in racemes, a central stem with just all these little fruits and or flowers. The flowers are white and urn-like because it is a member of the Ericaceae and is sort of a distant relative of manzanitas and madrones. The fruits are like miniature madrone fruits. They're warty surfaces, and they turn that same sort of orangey red color that madrone fruits do. Plants are evergreen. You can see the foliage there. And it's got bark that's very similar to a strawberry tree, which again is a relative or a somewhat distant relative of this.
Bart, are they still all over Rancho Santa Ana?
There are still some there, but it's here that they really seed around and are happy, not at Rancho.
Well, I just remember one trip at Rancho, they seem to be everywhere.
Not everywhere. They're dotted around, but it's sort of here in our canyon section, you'll see a lot of them, and we're always removing them. And then there are always more.
You put them in pots and sell them at plant sale? No,
we don't do any, we stopped doing anything from the garden ground itself because of the Phytophthora contamination issues. So these are, like I said, pooped out by the birds profusely, and they come up in all kinds of nursery pots. So I've just been salvaging them out of nursery pots with other plants in them. And that some of them, it's that, oh, okay, there's a Chomarostaphos that's really vigorous growing in that pot, and I really don't care about that other plant. It just becomes a Chomarostaphos pot.
I was going to say, train those robins to poop where they're in the pots.
Yeah, well, they do, because they
have to be empty pots, though.
They roost in the island oak that surrounds a lot of our glass house area. That's very near these really large Chomarostaphos plants. And so, yes, we have literally hundreds of Chomarostaphos seedlings that come up in our nursery pots. Most are not allowed to survive.
Oh, it's so sad. Okay, well, thank you everybody for sharing. I love seeing all what's going on in everybody's garden and such. It's a lot of fun.
Ellen?
Actually, one advantage of sharing at the for the plant farm is you get out and look at your garden in a different way. I mean, I was up on the ladder taking a picture of the eucalyptus. My neighbor walks by and says, "What are you doing up there?" It, you know, gets me to look at my plants a little bit more, because sometimes I'll ignore them. It definitely helps me see what's going on. So next month we have Ken Blackfruit, who used to be a docent at the Ruth Bancroft Garden and got interested in the Begonia, the amaryllis type of South African bulbs, Begonia and Buophony, excuse me, Rugsvigia, Cratanthus, and Amaryllis, and has done some hybrids and generic crosses and such. And he has a fantastic garden in San Diego now that he's down there. Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us.